This is the Nations Conspire channel. Welcome to today's show. It is Super Bowl Sunday, and I discussed a lot of the predictive programming surrounding a false flag occurring at the Super Bowl. I've covered that for years because of the fact that we have so much predictive program. We have so many movies and TV shows that depict a terrorist event occurring at the Super Bowl. Of course, I'm not saying one way or the other that something will happen or something won't. If something doesn't happen, I'm not going to say, I was wrong. And just like if something does happen, I would never come on here and say, see, I told you so. But it's important to note a lot of the coincidences surrounding this year's Super Bowl, including the fact that Donald Trump will be the first sitting president to ever attend the Super Bowl. It's occurring in New Orleans, the location of that false flag that occurred on New Year's Day. And the stadium it's taking place in was once called the Superdome, but is now called Caesars Superdome. And I want to get into some of the programming surrounding Donald Trump as a modern day Julius Caesar. But it is also important to note that the last time that the Super Bowl was in New Orleans back in 2013 when the Ravens played the San Francisco 49ers, we had a 33-minute power outage after the halftime ritual took place. And that, of course, is important to note because blackouts don't occur every day during Super Bowls, especially ones that last exactly 33 minutes. So obviously, when we look back at that Super Bowl and the ritual that was done at halftime, that was part of the ritual that was taking place. And of course, that ritual at halftime was performed by Beyonce. It's one of the more infamous satanic Super Bowl halftime shows that we have ever seen. And of course, one other thing to note is that Super Bowl was played by the 49ers and the Ravens, like I mentioned, who happen to have the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, Colin Kaepernick, you know, the guy who is the face of this massive psychological operation going on over the last 10 years where athletes are taking a knee during the national anthem. And of course, we had the Black Lives Matters movement, which he was involved in, and this anti-America movement. He was one of the faces of it. And Colin Kaepernick, for anybody out there that doesn't know, had the police called on him once because a woman that he was with called the cops because she was hysterically frightened and crying because Colin Kaepernick was performing a satanic ritual at his apartment. He was accused of performing black magic. And of course, I've covered Colin Kaepernick over the years. You could see him holding up the 666 symbol with his hands out in the open. And he's on the record saying, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. And that's really what it's all about for all of these famous athletes and celebrities. Sacrifice. And they're not talking about sacrificing their time in the gym, going to the gym on a Saturday night versus going out to party with their friends. They're talking about, of course, human sacrifice. So being that the Super Bowl is in New Orleans and Donald Trump is the first ever sitting president to attend the Super Bowl at the once called Superdome, now known as the Caesars Superdome. There is so much programming revolving around the Roman Empire and Julius Caesar. There's so many things out there where we see the mainstream media depicting Donald Trump as Caesar. Hail Caesar. And the new American empire. Donald Trump's recent declaration of plans to expand U.S. territory and rebrand the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America reflects a modern twist on imperial ambitions. We have, report says, Trump looked like a conquering Republican Caesar at the UFC fight, like ancient Rome. And of course, in covering the Donald Trump assassination, the fake assassination attempt on his life, over the years, I've shown people and I've talked about the fake assassination attempt before it happened because there was so much predictive programming that showed us Donald Trump being assassinated, from Snoop Dogg holding up a gun to Donald Trump in a music video, to Kathy Griffin holding up the decapitated head of Donald Trump, to celebrities like Johnny Depp talking about killing the president of the United States, to Madonna talking about blowing up the White House, and to all of those pictures that always show us Donald Trump staring at a picture of Abraham Lincoln, right? We had this play as well, Trump as Julius Caesar. Anger over play misses Shakespeare's point, says a scholar. Corporate sponsors have pulled funding amid controversy over an assassination scene, but the play argues against violence. This was years before the fake assassination attempt. And again, the media continually depicts Donald Trump as a modern day Caesar. The U.S. faces the same risks as ancient Rome faced in Caesar's day. Trump emerges from a convention as a Republican Caesar, Julius Caesar, Donald Trump, and the mighty martyrs. And of course, nobody has been martyred more in modern history than Donald Trump. All of the psychological operations that they've put out there for everyone to see, the sham charade trials, the constant attacks on Donald Trump by the fake news, which is all the news, and of course, the multiple fake assassination attempts on his life. So another coincidence, of course, between Donald Trump and Julius Caesar is that Julius Caesar was actually assassinated. He was stabbed 23 times by a group of senators known as the Liberators. They plotted to kill Caesar because they feared his absolute power threatened the Republic. The conspirators believed they were saving liberty and democracy. Does that sound familiar or similar to the things going on, the narratives that we have out there where the media constantly tells us that Donald Trump and conservatives are a threat to democracy, a threat to the Republic? And then on top of that, we have the other things I've talked about recently, right? We had Elon Musk go up and do that salute at Trump's inauguration, but that wasn't a Hail Hitler salute. It was a Roman salute that he was doing. And Elon Musk obviously is Donald Trump's right-hand man who has many times discussed the comparisons between the new America and the new Roman Empire. He's tweeted things like America is the new Rome. Donald Trump also on the record talking about how this was the golden age of America. How many times have we heard Trump, Musk, and all the Republicans talk about a golden age? They only talk about it because they want you to hear about it. And of course, Pax Romana was the golden age of the Roman Empire, a time period where Rome was actually expanding, the regional expansion, right? What are we seeing right now? We're seeing Donald Trump openly talk about the North American Union and expanding the U.S., acquiring Canada as the 51st state, acquiring Greenland, eventually potentially acquiring Mexico. So there's so many similarities that are out there between Donald Trump and Julius Caesar. So of course, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is going to be assassinated. In fact, I would believe quite the opposite, that there's really no chance of an assassination actually occurring on Donald Trump, but there's always the potential of false flag assassinations. Especially remember that the government takes the pulse of the people and they see how people respond to things, right? We've obviously seen the government lay off over the last couple of years in regards to COVID variants because they knew people weren't buying it. So they just stopped. Remember how many variants there were? Month after month, week after week, a new variant was popping up. People weren't running and getting their shots. People were exhausted from the entire thing, exhausted so much so that they didn't even care anymore about it. So the government stopped. Well, one of the things the government has seen since the fake assassination attempts is that there's really nobody out there other than myself and a few other people who are talking about how these are fake assassination attempts, how these were carried out by the government to martyr Donald Trump to gain more support for Donald Trump. So if people out there weren't looking at the assassination attempts as they should have, as false flag events, if they were actually believing what was being fed to them, that means for the government that they could continue to have these fake assassination attempts on Donald Trump's life, and people out there will continue to buy it. Had people actually turned on Donald Trump, had people actually said, wow, that was so fake looking, Donald Trump must be in on it, then the government would never carry out any more events like that. And since that first attempt, we saw even a second attempt and a potential third attempt was discussed. And we know how they like to act in threes. So if there is in fact a false flag, it would be to carry out a narrative of jihadist, a narrative of some boogeyman that they want you to look at as the enemy of America. And of course, the more they can martyr Donald Trump, the more support and idol worship he gets from MAGA and conservatives. But I don't actually believe there will be a real assassination. There's always the potential, again, for a fake one to occur. The Super Bowl is a big event. Like I mentioned, it is the largest and most watched show in America every single year. 1/3 of the U.S. population watches the Super Bowl. And now with people on their phones and on technology, the likelihood is that that's only going to grow. That potentially we could have half of the United States of America who are tuning into the Super Bowl. So obviously they use the Super Bowl to program people with propaganda in the commercials, to push agendas on the people during the commercials. But if everybody's watching and a false flag occurs, remember, these people watch these events as if they aren't scripted. They think what they're seeing when they watch a sports game, when they watch the news, when they watch anything on television that isn't called a movie, they look at it as a real event. And the government knows that. So when they create false flags right in front of your eyes, they know you're going to believe whatever you see. Just like on that 11th day of September, when everybody thought they saw 2 planes and they thought they saw towers going down because of 2 planes and didn't actually see a controlled demolition. So we'll see what occurs, but there's obviously a lot of coincidences which aren't really coincidences, right? Because there's no such thing as coincidences in this world. Caesars Superdome, Donald Trump, the modern day Caesar, the same location as the Super Bowl in 2013 where we had a 33-minute power outage. Of course, that Super Bowl featured Colin Kaepernick, who was an accused devil worshiper performing black magic rituals, who then ended up becoming the face of this anti-police Black Lives Matters movement. And again, Donald Trump continually getting compared to Julius Caesar, the talk of this being the new Roman Empire. Elon Musk constantly talking about America being the new Rome. And again, the golden age of America, the same exact thing as the golden age of Rome, right? The golden age of the Roman Empire, the Pax Romana, where Rome and the Roman Empire was seizing and expanding regions, just like we're hearing Donald Trump do now. So I don't believe that those are coincidences because there's no such thing as coincidences. We'll see what the Super Bowl holds. And again, I'm not saying that an event is going to occur, but obviously when you see these things, you should point these things out. People should be aware because if something does happen, these are ways that they can look at it and say, oh, these were planned beforehand. This was a planned, staged event. It was a ritual. It helps wake people up. Nobody here is obviously saying, I'm not saying that I'm a prophet or a psychic. I'm showing you signs and symbols, just like after the fake assassination attempts on Trump. I was never coming on my channel saying, I told you it was going to happen. This happened. I told you for years. I showed you all the predictive programming. No. The only people that do that are shills and frauds. Everybody out there should be paying attention to what they reveal around us because they aren't hiding anything anymore. So Super Bowl Sunday, folks, we'll see what the government has planned for us. Maybe nothing or maybe some false flags. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.